Well, we have not one, but two winter storms in the western half of the United States, while it's spring-like weather in the eastern half of the United States. It's still a shot for some low-hanging fruit record highs over the next couple of days. We'll talk all about that, the fantasies in the long range, and much more. Where else but on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at
Oh, it's my turn. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon,
New
in
York.
the southwest corner of New York, in the southwest corner of beautiful downtown Suffolk County.
Yes, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area, and over the coming weeks, as the transition from winter to spring gets underway. Remember, they've got mulch, they've got topsoil, they've got everything that you need to make sure that your home outside is spectacular. Or maybe your business outside needs to be spectacular. 631 756 1125, where you will find the best prices in town. The website is.
OmniTrueValue.com. Joe, it is
Yes.
it is starting already. Today,
Well, we're going to put
already.
and we're going to put a finish to it.
9 days in advance already. I've been hearing the grumblings and rumblings. Well, finally, we're going to get a biggie next week. Finally, snow. And I said, please.
I don't know what holes you're hanging out in. I haven't really heard anything. No one really asked me about it today, except one of my favorite snow removal guys. I mean, I love them all, but Adam's my favorite. And well, actually, I shouldn't say that because Austin's my favorite too. Uh, he said the GFS holds on one more day before disappointment. And look, you have to be skeptical about anything you see. Every Just to remind everyone, every single time in these last, let's start with November because I kind of think it started in November. So November, December, January, and now 14 days, halfway through the month of February. We've had numerous times where the models have thrown up something in the long range and in a seemingly impossible pattern that we're in. And while I will say that the upper air is changing to a degree, I I have put no value in whatever the models are doing from that respect when they get to 5 days. I mean, normally if it's like 7 days, I'm extra suspicious. So we're going to wait till it gets inside 5 days. I think that's wise.
Well, if you're looking for somebody here who is already spreading the rumor mill, you need look no further than our chat board. And we have Rick B., who is enumerated February 23, 24, snowstorm. March 1st and 2nd, snowstorm. And more to follow. And then further down on the chat board list, Rick B. comes back with snow is coming. Be patient.
Yeah. You're
So-
running out of time. I'm just going to say that you're running out of time. If this were a winter where we were we would have gotten some snow already, or if we were in a pattern, this whole winter where it was storm after storm, we wouldn't even be discussing the time factor here because we know that snow begets snow. But we're just not. So it's hard for me to get worked up over something that could very well turn out. It could turn out that what the models are showing, that the primary, we get a primary low that winds up going too far north, and it's mostly rain again. So there's a whole lot of things or it gets so weak it gets squashed to the south, and you get nothing. So I'm not even going to get. We'll get into that when we do the maps. I want to just do a little shameless self-promotion. Yes, it is shameless. But feedspot.com, which is sort of a blog warehouse, and they put out lists, Joe. They put out lists. So, and I think it's the fourth year in a row that my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, made the 100 best weather blogs list at number 65. I think at one point I was somewhere around 40. So I've kind of drifted down a little bit, but I'm still in the top 100, which is good. But more importantly, Joe, with regards to this show, they ranked the 60 top weather YouTube channels, and we come in, Joe, at number 21.
Wow.
And guess who's in? Well, you couldn't guess who's in front of us. There's too many possibilities. But the great James Spann is number 20. So we're right behind him.
Who's number 20?
James Spann.
Oh, the living legend of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes, he's number 20, and we're 21. So I feel I feel good about that. That's very cool.
That's pretty damn good to be right up there with James Spann, who was I had the privilege of meeting at a National Weather Association conference. Oh, this must be now more than 10 years
ago.
Years ago. Yeah. So
lots of hearts on the chat board, Joe, because today is Valentine's Day. I used to have a different name for it, but every time I tried to, make the joke out of it, I used to call it Emasculation Day. Because you could never get it right. But anyway, that's a story for another day on another channel, maybe on Dr. Phil's channel, but not on this one. So happy Valentine's Day to everybody on the chat board and all the hearts that everybody's putting up. Thank you, and thank all hearts back from Joe and I to our loyal folks that are on every day here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday through Thursday, and on Sundays at 11 a.m. There's another way of working in a shameless self-promotion.
Matt Coletta writes on the chat board, Joe Rayo, good time to ask for a raise or request a trade. I don't understand that. Why? First of all, a
trade to another team? Is that what he's implying?
I assume that's what the suggestion is, but why would I go to somebody else? I like it here.
I don't know that there's anybody else you could go to. I mean, I don't know anybody other than you and me that do a show like this. Do you?
Yes. Well, we do a very I'm not going to say eccentric.
Yeah, we're out of our minds.
Maybe we could say eclectic.
Yeah, eclectic. I like eclectic.
Yeah.
Eclectic is a cool. It's a $10 word. It's a good word. It's a solid word. It's fashionable. It's solid. So it's sort of bad enough for snow lovers if they have to watch one winter storm out in the west, but there are actually two winter storms out in the west, riding kind of back to back on each other, and it just goes to explain what is going on in the eastern part of the United States, which was a really good-looking day of sunshine. The temperatures your way topped out in the 50s. My way got into the 60s today. Patchy clouds here and there, but otherwise it was blue sky and sun. And you've got some warm weather coming for tomorrow, too.
It looks very nice for the next day or so. It gets a little wet out here as we move on toward the end of the week, especially so for probably Friday. So we'll get more into that in just a moment. And then, a trend toward colder weather for next week, and who knows after that?
Yeah, after Friday, it's another one of these quick day and a half shots of colder air. This one is hardly worth even noticing, as it barely gets the temperatures back down to normal for one whole day, and then it's back up. Maybe not to this extreme, but it's back up on Sunday. The weekend looks pretty good.
Absolutely. So where do we start first?
I think we should start in the West. We shall go to the West, and we will look and see what's going on in the western part of the United States. And I'm going to skedaddle off the screen here. And there you go. Two storms. There's a distinct area in between where we don't have much in the way of winter weather watches or warnings or advisories, watches or warnings up. The first one in the northern plains includes a large area of winter weather advisories and a bunch of counties in eastern South Dakota and North Dakota and western Minnesota, west central Minnesota, let's call it, under blizzard warnings tonight. Winter storm warnings in northern Wyoming and southern Montana. Then there's this break, and then you've got this next system that's come into the drop down in the west and now into the southwest. And we've got a widespread area of winter storm warnings covering much of Arizona, a good chunk of New Mexico, a good chunk of Colorado, and winter weather advisories in Utah. Winter storm watches up for north central and northeast Kansas, southern Nebraska, southernmost Nebraska, and a strip into northwestern Missouri and into southeastern Iowa. They're not going to get a ton of snow out of this, but certainly enough to reach warning criteria. And a lot of places in the West dealing with wind advisories and high wind warnings. We've got wind advisories also in the middle Mississippi Valley, northeastward into the Ohio Valley and lower lakes, and then up and down the East Coast and in the Northwest now, because yesterday they were under winter storm warnings there. That's all done too, so that's all nice and quiet. And the first system, Joe, it's kind of unusual, but I mean, given the strength of the ridge in the east, this first low is going so far west. When you look at the radar and what's going on, you think, okay, we got to be getting some rain out of this. You look at what's going on with the pattern. That low is going so far west and north that you're not going to see any not only are you not going to see any precip from it, but it's the mechanism that's going to turn the wind tomorrow to the west and bring those temperatures up into the 60s away from the ocean.
Right, right, and yeah, it is kind of interesting that it's nice and dry on both ends of the country, the left coast as well as the east coast, and that all the activity is taking place right smack in the middle of the nation, and that goes along with severe weather, thunderstorms, and that certainly is a big story too. Especially as you can see on the radar, that line, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that very sharp line of shower activity, thunder, probably embedded thunder too, crossing through western sections of Tennessee, northern sections of Mississippi, and the south end of Illinois and Indiana. That looks fairly formidable. And I guess if it holds together, Joe, you might actually get a piece of that either later tonight or first thing in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, shouldn't be much though. And there's an arm that extends the radar echoes in eastern Ohio into West Virginia. I think most of that's going to probably fall apart as it moves northward. And that's, you get that impressive comma-shaped look to things. And again, it's hard to imagine that you're not going to get something out of that, but you're not. Meanwhile, you start to see already the second shortwave is in the southwest, and the radar echoes are picking up across Arizona, Southern California, southern Utah, into Colorado. So we expect that area to increase some more. There's a couple of severe weather notes here. This is for tomorrow, Wednesday into Thursday. The Storm Prediction Center, a slight risk of severe weather covering the lower Mississippi Valley and northeastern Texas and over into western Tennessee, northwest Mississippi. That comes with a 5% tornado risk in that part of that slight risk zone. And there's no severe weather risks tonight. Then for tomorrow, for the next day, and this is for Thursday morning into Friday morning, the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk from Mississippi and Alabama northeastward into Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, southern Indiana, and over into northwest PA with a narrow marginal risk in between. And I threw in the chance that I was talking about yesterday about the chance of a thunderstorm when that front comes through, but I guess SPC is not seeing that because they got a sharp cutoff. This goes to Friday morning, so they got a sharp cutoff there in upstate New York. So I guess they're thinking no. So I will defer to them, and we'll see who turns out to be correct. But I'm I'm guessing maybe I overplayed my hand here. The tornado, this is day 3, so we're not going to see anything with regards to tornado risk. And there's a satellite loop from earlier. Look at all those clear skies from central New England down to Florida, and that that comma shape there, the giant comma shape with that first low coming out, and you can see the energy that's already dropping down into the southwest with the second round. So 2 storms back to back, 2 storms going to the Great Lakes, and we're not going to see a flake or an ice pellet out of either one of them. And it is the
Now,
middle of February.
now that arm that you pointed out through the Ohio Valley down to Virginia, and you said that a lot of the precip will probably dry out before ever reaching into our neck of the woods. But that apparently is the warm front. I mean, to the south and west of that area of unsettled weather, that's the push of unseasonably warm weather that will be moving in for tomorrow and on into probably Thursday as well, right?
Yep. And of course, for the pattern like this, if you live along the coast, you're going to have to start dealing with the realities of a south wind and how that keeps your temperatures from not getting as high as some of the inland spots. The WPC, 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 where are you? There you go. So WPC in their rainfall forecast. No, this is the surface map. I'm sorry. So let's take a look at that. And yeah, there it is. There's a 9. They have to make these numbers so small. A 986 low in eastern Nebraska, another 986 low in east central Kansas, and a 989 low in southern Colorado. I'm looking at on the cold side of it where they've got these winter storm warnings. Just to show you how pathetic it is in terms of the winter, even in the West with what they're getting. It's barely cold. I mean, we're talking about a big deal. Wyoming temperatures are in the 20s. Uh, Northern Colorado temperatures are in the 30s, 30s to near 40. I mean, this is just sort of like borderline cold air. It's just cold enough. It's not Arctic air, so they're pretty much doing it with the upper low and the trough, just dynamic cooling from the top down, and it works out there because they got the elevation to pull it off. But in the east, meanwhile, today 60s in Virginia. Upper 60s to around 70 or so in North and South Carolina, low 70s in Georgia, mid 70s across the lower Gulf states, and the dew points coming up in Louisiana are in the 60s. And you see where the warm front is drawn. One warm front in northern Mississippi and into Alabama tonight. They're not drawing a warm front with that arm. Although you have to think that there probably is a weak one in there somewhere, like you said.
Now, if we could just, if you're in agreement here, we just go back to the SPC convective outlook.
Yeah.
Now you showed us day 3,
Right.
and day 3 had a rather broad area. I mean, look at that. That area of yellow is all the threat of slight chance for severe weather. Now, day 4, you would think that some of that activity, at the very least marginal risk, would have shifted over into the Atlantic seaboard.
Predictability too low.
Too low. How could that be? I mean,
well, what's the timing of the front though on Friday? Because you've got the GFS keeps wanting to insist that the front comes through Friday morning. So I would think at least, or if that's the case, I mean, maybe they should have been maybe more risk in the southeast. And if you're going to put anything, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their mindset is. I'm a little surprised that they don't have where they shut the thunderstorm, the eastern flank of that thunderstorm line into Friday morning is so far west.
I just you're aware of it. I'm not going to share it with the rest of the
class
group here, but I mean, I have a vested interest in what the weather may be like on Friday, especially during the first half of the day on Friday, and whether or not there might just be showers and maybe even some scattered thunder boomer activity, especially if the thunder boomers might be more than just your general thunderstorms, maybe somewhat significant. And that weather front, that cold front, is a pretty sharp cold front. All right, I agree that the positioning of the front relative to the Atlantic seaboard is still somewhat in doubt.
Right.
But still, I mean, I did not even just mention the possibility of some kind of thundery weather here along the East Coast on Friday is just a little weird to me. But
All right.
anyway,
Well,
anyway,
the 7-day liquid precip totals in the northeastern mid-Atlantic are generally on the order of a quarter to a half. So this weather front is the only event in the next 7 days to move through the east. You're not going to get too much out of that. It's a little more robust in the Ohio Valley and in the Tennessee Valley, where we're seeing 1.5 to 2.5 inch liquid amounts, and that's all going to be rain. In the Great Lakes, a half to 3/4 in northern Michigan. Some of that's going to be snow. Down into a narrow band into Wisconsin and Iowa. We've got precip that extends out across Kansas, Nebraska, and into Colorado. Some hefty, half an inch to some places 3/4 of an inch to an inch plus in western Colorado. Uh, High amounts, similar amounts, I should say, in parts of Arizona. Also, as you go northwest up through Wyoming and Montana, in the Pacific Northwest, it picks up a little bit more. And there's some coastal precip being indicated up and down California. Meanwhile, in the land of snow, WPC is getting the fresh map from WPC, Joe, the 0Z probability for at least 2. And you could see that narrow, there we go, this narrow strip that gets 50% into northern Maine, and then everybody else is like, 20%, 10%, 5%. I don't even know why they bother to put a 5% chance. Uh, but anyway, I guess they have to put something. Meanwhile, it's 80 to 100% across Michigan, except the southeast, southern Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, through Iowa. You see also the high probabilities back through Kansas, southern Nebraska, much of Colorado, down into New Mexico and into Arizona. And out in the northwest, it's actually pretty quiet for a change. The long range, take a look at the long range. And the maps are refreshing themselves even as we speak. So Saturday, let's see. Oh, look at that. There's a little patch there up in northern Maine. No, it's even north of northern Maine. It's in New Brunswick. There is nothing anywhere in the United States for this is Friday into Saturday. Probability for at least a few inches. Nothing. Not a flake.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean there can't be an inch. Maybe there could be 2. But this is the probability of, say, at least 2, let's say 2.5 to 3. Sunday, you got a few little splotches up in the northwest. Saturday into Sunday. Sunday into Monday, those splotches grow in the northwest. And then Monday into Tuesday, they grow even more in the Rockies and on up into the northwest, while in the entire, pretty much everywhere east of the Rockies, nothing. Nothing of consequence anyway. We're still in that dire pattern. Now, before we do this, Johnny Quest requested that we look at tropical cyclone Freddie, Joe. Tropical cyclone Freddie.
Freddie,
Freddie.
look at this.
Ferdy. 15.3 south, 87.3 east. Maximum sustained winds are 120 knots. The minimum central pressure 942 millibars. If you want to get an idea of where this is,
It looks like Freddie to me.
yes.
Ferdy? If it would be Ferdy, it would be FE. It's an FR.
Well, I had someone I worked with at Pix. His name was Fred, but I used to call him Ferdy.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who would like to see the track of Freddie, or Ferdy, it's in the Indian Ocean, and it's weakening as it moves west-southwestward toward Madagascar.
And look at that.
where they're known for their lemurs in Madagascar. So pretty impressive. But again, on a weakening phase. But the satellite, though, and this is tropical tidbits, and we'll wait for the circle of death to continue to load the frames. There it is. That's pretty impressive.
It is. Look at that.
Well-defined eyes. It sort of has the buzzsaw look to it. I mean, because 120 knots is what, 140?
But do you notice something about this, Joe? This particular animated view of this particular storm, which immediately struck me as soon as I saw it.
Well, I mean, it's got that buzzsaw-ish look to it.
It has the buzzsaw-ish look to it, but because it's well south of the equator, look at the way the circulation is going round and round.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes. It's going clockwise.
That's right.
Yes, Chuck Cardillo, Jason Schaefer, and Johnny Quest all picking up on the clockwise motion. My head's too asleep for that.
And Jason Schaefer, I like that. Do the Freddy. Yes. I remember that song back in I guess it was the 60s.
Let's see. Let me see if there's anything else down here. No recon missions. Okay. We've got Gabrielle and Digjani. Digjani, I guess that's how you say it. So let's look at Gabrielle. This is subtropical depression Gabrielle at 38.5 south, 178.5 west. Oh, so it's actually that's interesting. It's on the eastern side of the international date line. And it's pretty far south.
Right.
That's weird. Let's take a look.
This is interesting to me because I could definitely remember in the Atlantic Basin that we once had a tropical system named Gabrielle.
Yeah.
So
this is actually, just looking here, Joe, it's forecast to track southeast and then east and get down to, we always refer to go up for north and down for south. It gets down to 60 south, and this is the GFS ensembles. That landmass you see down at the bottom right
is Antarctica.
Antarctica, yes.
Right.
Antarctica, which is they're in the middle of their summer there.
Right.
Isn't that exciting? So you get to see all kinds of interesting things here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. The satellite doesn't look like very much. So it's a subtropical depression, so I wouldn't expect it to look. And let's look at Digjani, which is at 25.3 south, 71.0 east. So that is, I gather that's also somewhere in the Indian Ocean, and it doesn't look like it's near any land. And these are the GFS ensembles, which take it to 30 south, and then eventually to 40 south and 95 east. So, okay. Anyway, we've covered the tropics in the southern hemisphere. So all our we have a huge Australian audience. So, they're into their tropical cyclones there. And of course we do have a following in Madagascar. Just so we're clear.
I don't know why I'm laughing because I can the way the World Wide Web is and some of the stuff that we've seen in recent months around here. I shouldn't even be laughing.
We had a couple of people from Australia that would show up every once in a while on the chat board. I haven't seen them in a while, but we've had them on the show.
Yeah.
We've had them watching the show. I can pull the list and let you know. I mean, we still have. I don't know who it is from the Isle of Man. I really want to find out who this. Because that's like, that could be royalty, Joe. That could be royalty. I mean, Charles is king, and he's busy doing whatever it is kings do. But every once in a while, he kind of sneaks on his, gets his little iPad and he pulls up the Joe and Joe Weather Show. So, Chuck, if you're watching, welcome, and hit super chat, by the way. So,
we'd probably get paid in shillings.
Exactly. All right, so just want to look at the upper air, and just going back to what you were saying at the beginning of the show, there's a few things going on here. I think a lot of this is, one of the things we talked about big time yesterday. I think, I don't think anything much has really changed today. This whole thing going on at the stratosphere with the polar vortex, basically blowing up with the stratospheric warming event. No one seems to know, or no one seems to know. I did see there. I didn't read it, Joe. There was a Judah Cohen tweet today. No one seems to have a finger yet on what it exactly is going to mean in terms of the overall pattern. The one thing I did notice today, and I started seeing it yesterday and seeing it more today, for the first time in a long, long time, there's actually a vortex up in Canada. That's something we haven't seen much of at all in the last 6, 7, or 8, since Christmas, really. And one does get established up there, which means at least that there is a chance that there could be a little bit of a colder flow setting up out of Canada at some point next week. How far south it gets, I don't know, because the ridge is still there, flat as it is, but it's still there in the Bahamas. But there's a little bit more going on in Canada than we've seen in a long time, and I just wonder. And the other thing is that the models, certainly the GFS, in the last several runs, toward the end of the run, wants to show some, nice big block developing up there and moving over into Greenland. So this is March 2nd on the last frame. If it gets to look something like this, it's far better than what we've had.
Encouraging.
Certainly. It would be encouraging, and I think you could maybe make the case that something could come out of this, but I'm not going to put myself out on a limb, at this point until I could get a real feel for what all of this stratospheric warming and what its impact on the lower part of the atmosphere is going to be. Until then, I'm just going with the trend is your friend scenario, and let it prove it to me.
Well, but Joe, just again to point things out to everybody who's watching right now, we're looking at maps that take us now into the month of March. So, as you have said more than a few times in recent days, the clock really is ticking now.
Tick,
tick. Yes.
Tick. And it ticks a whole lot faster in a winter where you've gotten no snow than in a winter where you have.
Well,
it may be the same. It may be the same amount of time, but the clock ticks faster when you're desperate, pretty much. And here's your surface on the latest GFS run. I don't think the European was that much different. Here's your first low. It actually does. The GFS actually does have a couple of scattered showers early in the morning tomorrow, as that pseudo warm front goes by. The low, an 86 low into northwestern Wisconsin, so you get the snow in the Dakotas and into Minnesota with a really tight gradient. The second low is getting ready. That comes out. There it is, 1,004 in northeastern Oklahoma. Blossoming area of snow across Nebraska into Wisconsin and Michigan. We've got some showers that look like they want to move through here with a warm front Thursday afternoon. And they've got showers here Friday. The GFS has showers Friday morning, Joe. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they're long gone. So, I mean, this probably suggests that rain would be ending sometime between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. And then out. And again, all we can manage from the standpoint of cold air is one quick shot Friday night and Saturday. It's a minuscule shot of cold air, which goes in by Saturday morning. The core of the cold air is actually already moving out. And then Sunday, it's back to a west wind and sunshine and probably temperatures that will try to make it back up toward or over into the 50s before it's all said and done.
Yep. And then
I was going to say, and then next week, we've got a cold front on Tuesday or Monday night Tuesday with some showers with that, some snow way up, and that goes out. I mean, it's not really all that cold behind it. You do have colder, there's like a colder surface look, but it's the 540 thickness is in south central New Jersey. You really want it down somewhere in North Carolina to have any value. Now, the GFS suddenly at 168 hours has some kind of short wave that comes out of the southwest with a little bit of overrunning precip, and it actually does have snow here Wednesday morning. Although it can't do it. It's got to even here. It's the air is so marginally cold that you can see the green stripes. It's green rain over Long Island and green right along the New Jersey shore. And then a second stronger wave comes out, and of course, how much cold air is there around? And so typical of the GFS2, where what was it yesterday or 2 days ago, trying to show this big cold high spreading out. Well, look where it is. It's much further north, and so is where the cold air spreads out. And you've got a low that comes out of Nebraska and goes up into the northern lakes. I mean, what are you going to do
Right.
with that?
You can't.
Right, and that's on this 18Z run, and we know that it might go back to doing something else on the next one. I mean, it does have a bit of a colder look to it, but as I said earlier, you're going to have to really prove it to me. Um, even the pattern could change, but it could go to another sucky pattern. And
You can't.
I think that's where I was talking with Bill Goodman this morning, Joe. I said to him, he was talking about he's pretty convinced that we're going to have a colder than normal March temperature wise. And I said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but all that's probably going to mean is that now we're going to go into a broad, bullish, cold, dry pattern where you can't get anything to happen because the jet is so broad that all you could at best see is weak systems moving along, and it'll be cold. And then the insult will be that you'll have cold air and nothing will happen.
Well, it's like I've been saying also for a good long time. For people who are getting excited about an event that is 9 days down the road, that's much too far off. I mean, you could have fun and look at the patterns and look at what is being implied by the weather models, 10, 15 days out. But really, if you truly want to get a handle on things, as you said at the start of the show, Joe, wait until at least 5 days before you start getting, excited or start jumping up and down, so to speak. And as I said many times, if it were up to me, if I were doing weather on television again, the first thing I would do is get rid of the 10-day outlook and the 7-day outlook, go as far as 5 days, because again, once you go beyond 5 days, it's more guesswork than anything else. And so all of you who have been getting excited about the fact that some of the models are saying, oh, snow, and colder weather. Oh, it's coming finally. 9 days from now, quiet. Come back in about 4 or 5 days. And if it's still showing what it's showing on some of the models, then I'll say, okay, now it's time to get in. Now it's time to get excited or get interested. But 9 days out, you ain't going to get me out of the.
No, I'm not wasting my energy with that. Roberson, I think I'm going to say it. Roberson Manti 95, Joe. He says you can't break a pattern until it's broken, and you know what? He's absolutely right.
Right.
Especially in a case like this, the pattern is so well entrenched that you have to really see. You almost have to put like an atmospheric atom bomb to it someplace, in order to blow it up. And until you see really strong evidence of that, for example, with respect to what the models were doing with the upper air in the last couple of days, I noticed that the southeast ridge, after about 10 days, starts to disappear. It actually completely disappears as the northern jet overwhelms. And of course, I looked at it today, especially on this last run, and it's not quite the case. It takes an awful lot to break something like that has been almost in a semi-permanent position for this winter. And there's right now there's nothing out, there's nothing there. It doesn't have to be something happening here. It could be a big storm out in the North Atlantic. It could be a big storm out in the North Pacific that sets the wheels in motion to break down the overall pattern. Just not seeing it. So it boils down to trying to figure out what this polar vortex, this stratospheric warming event means in terms of the medium and longer range. And I haven't. No one has a. I don't think anybody has a real clue, and then I certainly don't.
On the chat board, Matt Coletta writing, Joe, this Joe. He said, Joe, you remind me of a baseball scout that told me, let's see in 2 weeks to get excited. William Huber, Joe Rayo, come back in 5 days and I'll still show it 10 days out.
Well,
Maggie P.
it's that magical 264 hour. It always shows up somewhere in that time frame.
Maggie P says, my local ABC has a, quote, super 7-day, and some show 10 days, which I laugh at. Yeah, we have a couple of those here in this market, the New York market, that show 10-day outlooks. And if you believe the 10-day outlook, especially days 9 or 10 or 8, I have a bridge in Brooklyn you may want to buy.
Yes.
I'm hoping, guys, I'm hoping and praying. This is Jimmy Snow, 132, hoping and praying something happens for me. Something's got to give. Hopefully, William.
Garo Uvesta says, how often and roughly how many weather balloons go up in the U.S. and what altitude do they fly? That's a fly at, and how and when do they come down?
Hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, hundreds of them. And they got
twice a day, twice a day.
And they got tiny little parachutes on them so that when they're done, they just sort of float down. They're like little skydivers that come down.
But the most of the weather balloons, when they are inflated and they finally are let go, those weather balloons are no bigger than 2 or 3 feet in diameter. They are not, as was the case with the China balloon, truck-sized. No, you don't need to send up a truck-sized balloon to waft into the atmosphere a little package of weather instrumentation that goes up. And it goes up like 80, 90, 100,000 feet in some cases before the balloon bursts. And if you don't want to know why, it's because of Boyle's law, Boyle's gas law. And if you don't know anything about Boyle's gas law, look it up on the internet and you'll find out why the balloon, as it goes up, the volume gradually expands more and more and more and more until finally it just has so much expansion. It bursts, the package comes down, some little drogue chutes come out. So this way, if the radio sonde with the weather instrumentation hits you on the head, it won't hit it on your head, to kill you. It'll come down, gently through the atmosphere. So and we got like hundreds of those in the United States alone that are launched twice a day at 0 and 12 hours Greenwich time or universal time, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the evening. It'll go to 8 o'clock when we go on daylight time in about 25 days. Oh, God, I can't stand that.
Yeah, I know.
And that's just the United States. I mean, all the other countries send up weather balloons. I would say, Joe, that at 0 and 12 hours Greenwich time, there may be in excess of over 1,000 balloons go up, but they're not, again, the king-size version of balloons. They're much smaller in size. So when China said a few weeks ago, oh, it is simply carrying meteorological instrumentation. Do not worry about it. Yeah, we won't worry.
Yeah. 73 likes so far. Let's see if we can get it up to 100. If you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, hit the like button, please. Coin Pig Joe on the chat board, who is in the UK and frequents this show not every night, but we do see him from time to time, said he used to launch weather balloons here in the UK. The 350-gram ones used to get about 200 millibars typically. Yeah, they get up there pretty far.
Yeah.
Tony Robertson says apparently some weather bloggers are saying the vortex might be I guess the breakdown of the polar vortex might be as strong as 2018. So you've got some people, pointing to 2018, which was the year we had 4 nor'easters in 3 weeks and 4 major nor'easters in 3 weeks, and a lot of areas, some areas got a ton of snow out of that, including me, when I was on Long Island. So Tony, here's the thing: you can certainly go and say, okay, we had something like this happen in 2018, but that was so unique. I think it was. I remember that whole stretch in that month, where I was just amazed at how how that pattern evolved and how we got one storm after another after another. But I will tell you that we had a negative East Pacific oscillation that was off the wall. It was like 6 standard deviations negative. We had the North Atlantic oscillation, which would be the blocking signal, which was off the wall negative, 6 standard deviations. We had the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, and I think this is where it threw some people off. The PNA was 6 standard deviations. Whoa, I just took a power hit. I don't know if you saw the flash. Uh-oh. We could go down here at any moment, Joe.
Oh.
Oh, anyway, with the PNA, the Pacific North America Index was at 6 standard deviations. I have never seen in 40 years that I've been doing this, okay, the atmosphere stretched to such extremes like it was during that 4-week time frame. And I suspect that in my lifetime, which I hope goes on for another 20 or so years, we have a contract that this show should continue well till 2040. So, mainly because I need to eat. But here's the thing: I would be shocked if I ever see something like that again. So they like to go to the one that caused the most apocalyptic outcome and say, oh, it's just like that. Well, it's never just like that. Okay? So, uh-oh. Boy, somebody's fooling around with you. Stop fooling around with the electricity, for God's sake.
If you go down, everything goes down, I guess, right?
Well, the laptop is on battery, and well, I'd lose the internet, and I probably wouldn't be able to switch in time to my hotspot. But Jacqueline Baxter hit Super Chat, so I just want to thank you, Jacqueline. Most appreciated. We're not going to shut up until we get to 100 likes. We're at 92. Yes, John Curtis says it's the attack of the vinyl chloride plume. They had that railroad accident there where they were worried about that happening. Over in where was that? Was it in Kentucky or Ohio?
I think it was in Ohio.
Ohio. Yeah, so just going back, I know I got my electric bill today, Keith James. Oh, Joe, I was furious. My electric bill was $82.
Go.
That's what happens when you have hydropower.
Go blank yourself.
Yes, thanks a lot.
We hit 100, 101.
Oh, we did? Okay, good. So anyway, just to go back to that whole thing with the March 2018, Tony. They always like to go to the most apocalyptic outcome, and it's never exactly the same. So I would be shocked if we got into something like that again. I'd be shocked. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that if it were to happen, I would be very, very surprised.
Okay.
No, but I mean,
this would.
Am I not making sense here?
Yeah, I see here. Brigadude says $280 for mine. Thank you, PPL. I guess that's his electric provider.
Is that Pacific Power and Light? Brigadude, where are you? Where's PPL? Is that Pacific Power and Light? Curious. Let's see if he tells it. Alien Craft. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tony. Yes, Tony agrees with me. So I don't. Why do we have to deal with everybody always going to the apocalyptic conclusion, where it could just very simply wind up being another pattern that doesn't really produce very much?
So. Brigadoon, by the way, says Hazleton, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. So it's Pennsylvania Power and Light.
Yes.
Or Pocono Power and Light. Maybe.
Yes.
All right. Well, on that note, because we're coming up on 8:30, so you're going to take 2 days off. So I will be soloing tomorrow night, which means that there's always a chance that I could move the show up to 7 o'clock. But I will try to keep it in the context of the 7:35 start time. Okay? So we'll see you back on Sunday, correct?
Yes.
We'll see you back on Sunday at 11 a.m.
And by Sunday, we'll know whether or not the magic storm of later next week will come possibly to fruition or not, or whether or not I will be simply looking at everybody and saying, remember all that talk about that big storm later next week? Ha, ha,
Ha,
ha,
ha. Har, har, hardy, har,
har,
har.
har.
All right, folks. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow at 7:35. Nighty-night.
Good night, folks.